All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you for watching, for listening, however you consume the show. Appreciate you guys very much. I also appreciate today's sponsor, Sunny Reds, 1841 Eber Road, just down the way from Highmark Stadium, which, by the way, that stadium is really starting to come together visually. You can really start to see some work getting done there. Anyway, Sunny Reds, great food, great drinks, great vibes. One of my favorite spots to go. If you have not been there yet, make sure you do. This is our Wednesday midweek episode, which means, as usual, I'm joined by my good friend from over at SB Nation, Matt Warren. What's going on, dude? How you doing?
Everything's good over here. Having a good time. Like coming down from the free agency stuff, and now we're getting into like some contract analysis, and then of course turning our attention to the NFL draft.
It's definitely pivot time right now from free agency to, like you said, to working on or evaluating contracts and certainly looking forward to the draft. Want to let people know who listen to the show regularly. Starting actually this week, I'm going to have 5 consecutive mock drafts on Thursdays. I'm going at it alone on tomorrow's show. I kind of want to set the bar real low, so I'm doing it by myself tomorrow. But in the weeks to come, I know I got David Tilton from Cover One is going to be doing one with me. Sticking with Cover One, Anthony Prohaska is going to definitely be doing one with me. Bruce Nolan is going to be doing one with me. I'm obviously looking forward to that one. Chris Trapasso is going to do one with me, and we're actually going to do it live at Sunny Reds about a week or so before the draft. So plenty of mock drafts coming down the chute. And before we get into today's episode, which, by the way, I kind of want to talk about when it comes to the Buffalo Bills. I kind of wrote a list down of players that I think are the most important players to the Buffalo Bills' success for 2025, whose name's not Josh Allen, because that would just be too obvious. I kind of got a little bit of a 1 to 10 countdown. I want to run it through with you guys and get some thoughts and insight from Matt here too, as well. Mock drafts. Want to ask you about this. We talked about you being whether you're a mock draft guy before or not, but I don't know how you approach them and evaluate and look at them, because like I said, I do mock drafts and it's not so much what player does the Bills end up with all the time. I mean, that's fun. That's ultimately what people want to see. But what I do like about mock drafts is I consider it a thought exercise. And you kind of get an idea, like, what the Bills need. You want to see how the board falls. It's more about kind of getting a general idea of, all right, if you need corners, what corners are consistently available? Say, let's just use the first round for an example at 30, between say 23 to 30, what corners are consistently there where you can kind of get a good feel for who may be there? How many are definitely going to be going off the board? And if you use a couple different media outlets, you kind of get, I feel like, a really good idea. Or if you're like, well, I really could use a corner. I also would love to get a defensive tackle. And you start going through the process and you notice that the defensive tackle position is a lot deeper. So maybe early on, you're making sure you take one at 30, but now you're starting to learn by going through this process that you could get a good one in the second round. Maybe you move up in the second round a little bit to secure a guy. You know what I'm saying? But you start to get that kind of sort of an idea of how things may fall and what the Bills are probably looking at and what they may end up doing. I know at the end of the day, it's about predicting guys and taking a victory lap if you nail it. And by the way, when you do freaking 50, 75 mock drafts, you're bound to nail a couple. But more than that, for me, it's about learning about, first of all, I learn about a lot of the prospects through that process, but just kind of like where I start to get a good vibe for where guys will and won't be available. You agree with that to an extent?
Yeah, and not just that. It's like you were kind of going down this path in your comment there, but it's like position groups. Like, where are like the tiers of the position groups, and that's typically like what I end up coming with. Like the name I kept thinking about last year is like Brian Thomas. Like, is he going to last far enough where the Bills can trade up to get him or not?
Right.
And like so like, because I never thought they were going to be able to get up to get like Malik Neighbors or something, but like you can start having those conversations, especially when it comes to Brandon Beane, who's probably not going to sit back and wait. Obviously, he did last year, because when we got into that next tier, there were multiple players there by the time it was coming around to the Bills, and so they knew they could trade back, still get one of the guys from that tier. And so that's again where I look at is like position group tiering as opposed to like specific players.
Yeah, definitely. I'm the same. Uh, we'll talk about the draft. We'll worry about the draft in the weeks to come. Kind of why we talked about free agency being over and pivoting. Let me start here though. Let me ask you this. We're recording this anyway on March 25th, mid-afternoon. There's 3 prominent former Buffalo Bills right now that actually still are free agents as we record this. Amari Cooper is still out there. Von Miller's still out there. Rasul Douglas still out there. I mean, these were 3 guys who were relatively pretty important to the Buffalo Bills last season. And we're now, a few weeks into free agency, and they're still looking for the right fit, the right opportunity, whatever it may be. Von Miller certainly does not surprise me, so I'm not going to bother asking you that. I'm sure he's waiting for, the right opportunity. But are you a little bit surprised that Amari Cooper right now, and especially Rasul Douglas, are still not gainfully employed right now?
Douglas is the most surprising to me. I don't think he had a bad year. I mean, he didn't have a great year or anything, but like he's a serviceable starting cornerback in the NFL. I'm just a little bit surprised he hasn't taken something just to make sure that he gets an opportunity to compete for a starting spot somewhere. So that one surprised me a little bit. The Amari Cooper thing, he did kind of have like a wonky year, whether you're talking about his time with the Browns or his time with the Bills. So that's not like super surprising to me, especially when you look in like Stefon Diggs and Keenan Allen and some of those, um, I'll say older wide receiver free agents are still out there. The guys that are looking to get like probably a 1 year kind of prove it deal. It's hard to say prove it when you're that seasoned, but kind of that 1 year deal. Well, Elijah Moore is still out there. Like, I mean, there's a few wide receivers out there, so it's not like super shocking to me, but it's at least in the kind of conversation. And then like for the Von Miller one, it doesn't surprise me there either. I just like I told you about Stefon Diggs last week. I thought he was going to sign after the draft, so it was kind of surprising he took a meeting with the Patriots this week. But for Von, I just really feel like he's a guy that is going to sign right after the draft with some team that missed out on an upper level pass rush prospect that needs pass rush help somewhere. You could even see him do like the Leonard Floyd. And if memory serves me right, Leonard Floyd, when he signed with the Bills, signed like way late in the process, like right before training camp. Yeah. So like maybe he's even one of those guys that just doesn't want to go through all the offseason stuff, knows he's going to sign a 1 year deal, knows he's going to be a kind of a 20 snap, 25 snap player, and just is kind of waiting it out right now.
Yeah, Leonard Floyd was well post draft. I think the
Right.
Bills got some new money at that point. All right, those 3 guys, you see any realistic chance that any of those 3 are back with the Buffalo Bills for 2025? I don't know
The
that any
only
of
one,
those positions have been addressed enough to completely rule it out, but I also, don't see it happening. Do you?
no, Douglas is the one that sticks out to me of those 3 players. I don't think Cooper's going to be back. I think that went out the window when they signed Palmer. But Rasul Douglas like would fill a need for them, like especially if like whatever reason his number has been too high and his number starts to creep down the closer we get to the draft. Like I could definitely see him being a guy that comes in, and then maybe they even release Dane Jackson or something like that. Like I mean, that position is incredibly fluid right now at cornerback, whereas I think they feel more set at edge rusher and more set at wide receiver heading into the draft.
I will fuel speculation here. Okay. I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't use the word source often because I'm not plugged in like a lot of other people, but a little something, little here, a little something there. I will tell you this. I have heard from somebody that I trust that Von Miller absolutely wants still to this day, still wants to come back and be a Buffalo Bill for 2025. I don't know how that works with the Bosa thing. I'm just telling you, that's what I hear. I hear that he definitely still wants to be a Buffalo Bill and is at least hopeful that something ultimately could get worked out. Trying to think of how that works. Well, although they do have him suspended for 6 games, but still, it's like what happens after that? I don't know.
The salary cap piece of that is the interesting part to me because the time to do that would have been offering him a pay cut before they released him and his dead cap accelerated, right?
Sure.
And so he's already counting whatever it is, like 8.5 or 9.5 million against the cap this year. And so whatever they sign him for is going to be on top of that. And so it just, unless it's another incentive deal like last year where, he has to hit a certain number of sacks to even get like, $1.5 million or whatever it happens to be. Like even then it's going to raise his cap hit to above where it would have been if he had just taken a pay cut. So that's why the timing of it just feels very weird to me. Maybe they didn't offer him a pay cut in that case and he just like was going along with the flow. But if he was offered a pay cut and wants to stay in Buffalo, that was probably the best way for that to happen.
Well, also, let me be clear, too. I've heard that Von Miller would like to be back in Buffalo. I have not heard anything saying the Bills would like to have Von Miller back in
Fair.
Buffalo. I'm not saying that they don't want him back. I have no idea. I'm just telling you that I've heard that Von Miller absolutely wants to be back for the Bills. A lot of people are talking about him ultimately going back to Denver. That certainly would probably be on the table. That wouldn't stun me. Just saying what I heard. You mentioned Stefon Diggs earlier. Reportedly, and I saw one clip where he was doing some cuts, but reportedly he's running full speed already. He's 5 months out from the ACL too, and he's running full speed. Gotta ask you this. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't. Are you intrigued? Are you intrigued for from a Buffalo Bills perspective at the possibility of maybe Stefon Diggs returning to this team?
Not really. It really surprises me that he is like that far along in his recovery, if that's to be believed. It's very fast, and he's not a spring chicken. No offense to people that are younger than me, but like in terms of being a professional athlete, like it should take him a while to recover from this, and we saw it with Von Miller. I mean, it just the recovery time lengthens as you get older. Von was able to come back relatively early when he was younger in his career. Then when he was older in his career, he wasn't able to bounce back so quickly. So it does surprise me a little bit that he's running at full speed already.
Yeah. I I don't think the Bills want him back. I do think he's got football left in him. I do not think he's washed up. I do not necessarily automatically think he's the next Odell Beckham Jr., somebody who used to be a great player who tears his ACL, gets old, and is completely washed. I do still think he's got some quality football left in him.
Yes.
I do not think it's going to be with the Buffalo Bills. I will say on March 25th, I'll say it again. Don't sleep on the New England Patriots. I know he visited with them, so it's not exactly like shocking news or anything like that, but it's just a good fit. It's an opportunity to get a young quarterback with a good veteran, and it's an opportunity for Stefon to still be one of, if not the guy with New England. It just seems like a really
Mhm.
good situation for him. So that'll definitely be something to monitor. It would not surprise me at all. When you look at this roster right now, before we get into, like I said, the key players, and then there's a lot more than just 10 important players. So that was not very easy to do. But I feel like if you're looking at this roster right now and with an eye towards the draft and how things stand, Matt, is it becoming obvious that corner is their biggest need as things stand right now? And will be drafted. Let's say this. They're going to take a cornerback relatively high, no later than day two. Okay. I'm not just because corner's your biggest need doesn't mean they're going to take one in the first round. You don't want to get Kyrie Elam again, potentially, if there's a great defensive tackle or edge there and you want to go take the fourth, fifth corner potentially. You get what I'm saying. But it's becoming obvious, though, isn't it? That any corner they get, whether it's at pick 30, 56, 62, whatever it may be, it feels to me like they're going to have an opportunity to come in and start as a rookie going against Dane Jackson, because unless they pivot and bring in Rasul Douglas, which unless Rasul lowers some contract demands, I just don't see that happening. Doesn't it feel to you like that's going to be one position where a rookie's going to have a true chance to start from day one?
Probably. And I mean, that's why we keep talking about raising the floor, right? Like you want to keep adding to that. So it's not, I mean, right now, Shamarcus Ingram is your, third boundary cornerback. And like, no offense to him, but like, I don't want that going into the season. I want like
No.
depth at that position, right? And so whether it's, signing a guy like Stephon Gilmore, Rasul Douglas, Asante Samuel Jr., riskier guys like Kendall Fuller, Chidobe Awuzie, I always say his name wrong, like signing one of those guys to be like your backstop, to make Dane Jackson your third cornerback and then come in and compete with a rookie. That's really ideally what Brandon Beane wants to do. I think we'll see if he's able to make that happen because he doesn't want to have to telegraph his pick like he has done a few times, including with Kaiir Elam. And so if that is their number one need heading into the draft, you can still address it right now with a guy that can come in and at least compete for a starting spot. Like same thing they did when they drafted Elam and Benford, right? They had, I think it was probably Dane Jackson too. Like you had those three guys like all thrown together, like iron sharpens iron, let the best guy win and emerge. And eventually it ended up being Christian Benford when they trusted him. And just having 3 or 4 guys that you can throw at the problem would be a lot more helpful than just going into the draft hoping that they're going to draft a starter on day 1 or in the second round.
Yeah, and look, the Bills may not be done shopping. They still might sign a corner. I mean, they did. They hosted a big ass defensive tackle. I already forgot what the guy's name is. He signed with Vegas anyway. He didn't sign with the Bills. So it's not like they're done. They're at least window shopping at the very least, you know. So we'll see if they add another corner. I really hope they do, and I hope it's somebody a little bit better than Dane Jackson. Ideally, I'm really good with Dane Jackson being my third corner. He's certainly rosterable. I also like Jamarcus Ingram a lot. He's a rosterable guy. I just don't need him out there playing boundary corner. He's a good special teams guy. He could fill in for a quarter. You don't even have to play a game, whatever have you, and he could play multiple positions. He's a good guy. You need those kind of guys on your roster, but I don't need to be one turned ankle away from Jamarcus Ingram potentially being your starting corner for the next month. You know what I mean? So,
well, the Bills had Kaiir Elam ahead of him. Like every time that they needed a guy to come out and start a game when Christian Benford was hurt, they went to Elam. And so it just, even if someone out there really loves Jamarcus Ingram, like the Bills have shown that they don't necessarily trust him in those situations to the point where they just traded the guy that was ahead of him on the roster.
Agreed. I will say they trusted him to be active on game day, though, because Kaiir Elam would be healthy and active when they were healthy. But yeah, when it came down to actually having to play the cornerback position, they trusted Kaiir Elam more, and that turned out to be a pretty big mistake. I still, months later, have a hard time imagining that Ingram could have been possibly any worse than Elam was against Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. But I guess I got to get over that. Well, I say too, a quick little tiny detour, unrelated to anything we're talking about today, but so I tell you this every week, so everyone knows. I always have TweetDeck open when you and I record because we record during the day and shit tends to still happen during the day. And I want to make sure during our recording period, if something goes, that I catch it. This ain't got nothing to do with the Bills or even football. But I noticed another UB basketball player hit the transfer portal. And it got me thinking, Matt, I don't know how much you follow college hoops anymore. I used to be a rabid college basketball fan. And through the years, it just sort of lost me. And I kind of went on a little bit of a tangent this year. I'm not even watching the tournament. I'm so sick of this shit. It's literally free agency. 9 UB Bulls. UB Bulls, not from the conference. 9 guys on the UB Bulls have entered the transfer portal since the season ended. What are we doing? How could you possibly invest and get into a team right now when literally half your team leaves year by year? College sports right now, especially at least with basketball, and I'm sure football too, but it bothers me for some reason more with basketball, is it's year by year, 1 year free agency. And now these guys get paid too. So, I mean, finances play a huge role. It's literally like a business. It's literally at this point, professional sports. I really don't have a point to make here or a question to ask you per se. Doesn't bother you though. It's just like, I can't get into college athletics anymore because of this reason. Look, if I was a great athlete, I'd want to get paid. I'd want to be able to do what I want to do each year. I get that. But as a fan, it's lost me because of that. Do you kind of feel the same way at all, or does it not really something that registers with you?
No, I understand what you're saying. I watched a lot of Syracuse basketball when I was in college because they were winning a national championship, and then they had like some of those really, really great teams,
Me too.
for years after that. I, you know, dropped cable at one point. I had kids, and there's whatever, so many games and all this other stuff. So it did fall away for me, but not necessarily because of the NIL stuff. I will say that it does make it harder to root for like a mid-major team. Like, I mean, you're talking about the UB Bulls losing their top 9 players. Like, it's not even their starting line, like their starting lineup. It's everybody, right? And so when you're talking about the difference between football and basketball, I don't think you're seeing that kind of percentage roster turnover in football. So it definitely feels like it hits harder in the basketball world. Um, but like at the same time, you talk about we always had the one and done guys anyway. Like Carmelo Anthony, it does 1 year, then goes to the NBA, whatever. So like, there's always been some of that. Um, and the free agency piece too is like really difficult for a lot of people to like fathom because like we're used to like guys in the NFL signing like some of them sign a 1 year prove it deal, but a lot of those guys are signing for like 2, 3, 4 years, and so you can at least get used to the idea that they're going to be in town for. Von Miller was here for what a few years, so you at least understand that it's a little bit more permanent. Where those NIL deals being like 1 year and one player can play for four different teams over the course of their college career seems excessive to a lot of people. And I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, and look, you would be hard pressed for a nice chunk of my life to find somebody who liked college basketball and football more than me for a long time. And I know
Mhm.
I'm the old guy yelling at the clouds right now when I say this. You talk about guys like Carmelo, one and done, go to the pros. I get that. They're elite. They're different. They go to the pros. To me, and again, old grumpy dude, I get it. But it's like right now you're teaching kids that are 18, 19, 20, 21, yo, you don't have to commit. If things aren't going your way early on in the program, if you're not where you want to be after a year, if you feel like you should be a starter, but you're coming off the bench, whatever, instead of working harder, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Just leave. Just go somewhere else because you could do that freely. It's
Mhm.
crazy to me. I grew up in Buffalo, and I'm sure where you grew up and where most people grew up. When you played high school sports, you went to the school either if you went to a Catholic school because your parents could afford it or whatever, you went there, or if you went to
Mhm.
public school, you went to where you lived. That was the
Mhm.
school you went to. And in some cases, if you transferred, you would have to sit out a year. It was crazy being eligible for a year. I got down to Florida when my son played football in high school. It was like, holy shit. It was kind of like college football is right now. It's like kids
Yeah.
were going to a different program every year, and it did not matter where you lived. All you had to do was fill out some bullshit paperwork and have some kind of bullshit excuse, and you got to stack teams. And now I just look at college basketball and football too, but it's like, yeah, a team like UB, these mid majors are the worst. Because ultimately, if you're an Ohio State fan, you're a Notre Dame fan for football, stuff like that. Players ultimately are going to your school, but these mid majors, they're just
Mhm.
getting ravaged every year by transfer portals. If you're not good enough, they leave, and if they're too good, they leave. There's a kid. Everyone knows about Sean Dolak now. Even the
Mhm.
casual college football fan, Buffalo Bills fan, know about Sean Dolak. He grew up in Buffalo. He was absolute stud. But to give you a hot take here, he might not even be the best linebacker on his own football team. Red Murdoch, who's a sophomore, almost, I don't want to say he's as good as Sean. He's almost as good as him, and he may end up being better. Sean might be the first one to tell you that by the time it's all said and done. And no one's talking about it right now. I keep waiting every morning. I keep getting up. I'm like, when am I going to hear that Red Murdoch has entered the transfer portal and he's going to end up at freaking Michigan or, Florida or something like that? Well, I'm going to be in the U. Why are you going to stay at UB? You could get paid much more money and go to a bigger program. You don't got to sit out. No issues. No, nothing. Feels like this should be a conversation for another time. It just, I don't know. It just really struck a chord. I had my tweet deck open and I just saw another UB kid enter the transfer portal. Like, Jesus, man, it's freaking annoying, man. Anyway, all right, let's get into before I get completely off the rails here. Uh my most important Buffalo Bills players, not named Josh Allen, for 2025. I'm not gonna no suspense. I'm not gonna go 10 to 1. I'll go 1 to 10, starting with me, the most important, and then I kind of want to ask you a question or two about each of those guys. That's how we'll do this. Number one for me, and I don't know how you feel, love to get your opinion, but this was actually a relatively easy one. Well, at least 1 and 2 were easy, and then I think there's a tier after that, but 1 and 2 to me were by far the 2 most important. Number 1, I got Christian Benford. To me, he's the most important Bills player, not named Josh Allen, for 2 reasons. Number 1, he's a hell of a cornerback. He's become one of the best 5 to maybe 7 corners in the entire NFL. So his skill set is incredibly good and is still getting better, I feel like. And number 2, What happened when Christian Benford got hurt against Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game last year? That position, even with Rasul Douglas, who's not on this team now, and Kyrie Elam, who's not on this team now, was razor thin to begin with. It is razor thin right now. If you don't got Christian Benford out there, you are a far less football team. I think he's a special player at a premium position that is really thin on the Bills. So I simply can't come up with a guy not named Josh who's more important to the Bills than Christian Benford. What are your thoughts about his significance, his importance to this team?
I think you touched on this a little bit. The fact that the depth at the position is so thin, I think really does factor in here. There's not a guy that can come in and like, I mean, if they lose him, Dane Jackson's your number one cornerback, and then you've got Jamarcus Ingram, and like, I don't know, I might be playing cornerback next. Sean McDermott might be suiting up. Like, I don't, who would be next after that? All right. Like, so I definitely would put him higher because of that. And knowing the rest of your list, like there's a lot of guys on here that are like that are just kind of at thin might be too strong of a word for the rest of them, but this position is for sure thin.
Yeah. Let's do number 2, then we'll take a break because I think it'll start to get a little more mysterious, so to speak. Because to me, number 2 is a clear cut number 2 as well, and that's Deion Dawkins. Again, there's not a. This team is full of good to very good players, but I don't know that the Bills outside of Josh Allen have a lot of great players. He's definitely one of them. He's one of the best left tackles in the NFL, and he's literally protecting your quarterback's blind side. It's not that Ryan Vandermark is awful if something happens to Deion Dawkins, but given who he is, how good he is, and the position he plays, I can't put anyone else except for Benford above him on this list. Do you consider Deion Dawkins one of the best left tackles right now in the NFL? He thinks he's the best left tackle in the NFL. Like he literally said that. I don't know if I do say all that, but he's up there for sure.
He's on the short list, absolutely, yes. So I would definitely put him on the list of best left tackles in the NFL, and I like where you put him on this list. The Bills would have to change their offense fundamentally if Deion Dawkins went down for an extended period of time. Whether that means like less or fewer James Cook snaps because they need more help on the backside blocking. It means more Dawson Knox and 2 tight end sets. Like they would have to fundamentally change what they do. And so I do think that he's that important. And I could argue that he is the number one person ahead of Christian Benford if like, but the fact that we have experienced depth behind him, I think probably makes him the second most important person, like you said. So like it's gonna be a bad day when the Bills have to replace Deion Dawkins in this lineup.
All right, I'm here with Matt Warren from SB Nation. And right now, we're kind of going through the most important Buffalo Bills players to this 2025 upcoming season, beyond, of course, just Josh Allen. Number 1, Christian Benford. Number 2, Deion Dawkins. Maybe you could flip them, but I feel like they're in that tier. Mm-hmm. Number 3, this is a for now. Number 3, maybe this might prove to be a little bit too high, but for now, I got Ed Oliver at number 3. And I'll say this too. Down the road, you sign Larry Ogunjobi. He's going to be serving 6 games. He does some of what Ed Oliver does, so he'll be out there plenty. And I also do think that this is a position that they will address in the draft. And maybe that affects how much you have to depend on Ed Oliver come the regular season. Like, they're certainly going to address corner in the draft, but that's not going to change or affect anything with Christian Benford. He's your number 1 guy on whatever side of the field he's playing on. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. Ed Oliver, maybe his significance or how vital he is, him having a big season is to the team. Maybe with Ogunjobi, and like I said, a rookie, or if they do some other stuff, maybe it's not quite as important. But right now, I look at the defensive tackle position, and Phillips gone, Jefferson gone. So we don't even talk about those guys anymore. It's weird because I still feel like maybe one of them might end up coming back. But Dwayne Carter behind him left a lot to be desired last year. Now, I know he got hurt. And he had a flash for a couple moments here and there, but I'm not sold on him. So it's going to probably be some rookie and Ogunjobi. But for right now, I got Ed Oliver ranked really high just because he's an important player, and I just don't think there's a lot at this position. And he is one of the better pass rushers on this football team.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing like Ed Oliver continue to grow as a player. Like I'm hoping he's not plateaued here because if he could take another step, especially in like the high pressure situations, that would be very helpful for the Bills. Um, I do think that there is less of a drop off from say like Deion Dawkins to his backup, Christian Benford to his backup, than there is from Ed Oliver to Larry Ogunjobi or Ed Oliver and say Quentin Jefferson or Jordan Phillips who are still on the free agent market. And so like it's not as I don't know, it's not as stark in that changeover from the starter to the backup, at least from what we've seen. Um, so like I might not put him this high, but he could definitely have that kind of impact if he does take that next step. So that's why I said that first. Like if he did take that next step to being an elite three tech pass rusher, yeah, he would definitely be one of the three most important Bills. I just don't know if like at this point in his career we have seen that yet.
That's fair to ponder that. And I'll add this as well. This is kind of fickle when we're actually doing rankings. Like 9 to 4 is not really different. Both players are going to be incredibly important to this football team. I'll give Ed Oliver some props too, because I've been very, very hard on him in recent years on this show because he was an absolute colossal flop against the Chiefs at home when they lost in a divisional round 2 years ago, and the year before that against the Bengals. Just an utter no-show. He played well in the playoffs last year, including the AFC Championship game against Kansas City. He's one of the few guys on defense that actually showed up. So I do worry about a plateau, like you said as well. But I have hope, and I was impressed that maybe his best football still is yet to come based on what he did stepping up in the playoffs, which is something that he really hasn't done previous to this season. So I got him at 3. Number 4 is we're gonna go to the other side of Josh Allen, and that's Spencer Brown. Now, you could say they played without him against the Chiefs last year at home, and they smacked it, or they didn't smack the Chiefs, but they beat the Chiefs at home without
Right.
him. I believe Ryan Vandermark played right tackle that entire game. I don't want to be taking that chance very often. Spencer Brown, don't you feel like he's become one of the best younger right tackles in football? And also the contract that Brandon Beane signed him to, I think Brandon Beane deserves a lot of credit because I feel like he got out a year in front. Because if Spencer Brown would have played it out and been a free agent this year, he got 18, 19 when he signed. He's probably getting 23, $24 million in the open market today. You agree with that?
Probably, yes. He's certainly an ascending player still. Kind of like I said with that Oliver, I think the distance between Spencer Brown and Ryan Vandermark isn't as stark as like we're talking with Christian Benford. And so
Mhm.
like I do think that Spencer Brown is incredibly important to this football team, especially just the way he plays with his nasty streak. I think really can help out. Sayers Torrance on the right side, another guy who could have that really big nasty streak. Um, at right guard. So I like what he brings to the team, and but like you said, we've seen somebody kind of sort of replace him, not necessarily like all the way. So yeah, I do think he's incredibly important to this football team.
Number 5, I got Greg Rizzo. He's the best defensive lineman on this football team, bar none, right
Yes.
now. Well, Joey Bosa might have something to say about that if he can stay healthy and put together, especially in the back half of the season. It feels like there'll be a lot on his plate for quite a while unless they really hit on a good edge guy early in this draft who may be a 1B to Greg Rizzo's 1A. Um, I don't put, especially watching the game back so many times now, I don't necessarily put the Chiefs game on him, but I will say he was another irrelevant disappearing act in the Kansas City game. But if you're watching it objectively and fairly, I think sometimes I put too much on the defensive line because there was nobody covering anybody. Guys were open within a second and a half. How are you going to get to a quarterback when Mahomes literally is throwing a ball to a wide open guy within 1.5 to 2 seconds, of every play? But you want to talk about somebody who may have plateaued. I was going to ask you that anyway. You said with that Oliver. Do you think that there's a realistic chance that Greg Rizzo, who is a good to very good player, but he's plateaued, like he's been here for 4 years, 7 to 9 sacks is probably what you're going to get every year for him. Do you see that breakout 12, 13 sack season coming for him?
I certainly can. I mean, the dude's only 24. We're talking about Ed Oliver's like, in his late 20s, right? He's not 30 yet. No, late 20s. So Rousseau certainly has, experience to build off of. Like maybe Joey Bosa can teach him something. He was paired with Von Miller before, or Jerry Hughes before that. Like he can still add tools to his tool belt. And I do think he's still an ascending player. We're hoping to have that same conversation about Greg Rousseau that we've just had about Spencer Brown kind of overperforming his contract.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's no reason to think that Greg Rousseau has plateaued as a player in the NFL. That doesn't mean he's going to get better, but there's just no reason to think that he can't.
Well, $20 million a year, you hope that he is going to get better. But
Right.
like to your point, though, that could end up $20 million a year if you're getting double-digit sacks. Not even so much the sacks, just making a couple more plays, timely plays. It might be a run stop, it might be a pressure, it might be a forced fumble. Doesn't necessarily have to be sacks for him to be able to take that next step.
Right.
Number 6, I got Terrell Bernard. And look, I could sit here and read you an encyclopedia's worth of reasons why, but I'll ask you this. Do you want Balen Spector being your middle linebacker? Do you want Joe Andreessen, all due respect to my guy, being your middle linebacker? No. So Terrell Bernard, who's your captain on your defense, has to be in the top 10. And I guess my question I'll ask you is this. Do you think there's a realistic chance? I know you want to. Do you think there's a good chance that Dorian Williams is going to be the guy who gets a lot of mic work this offseason so that come regular season between Terrell, who gets nicked up, and Milano, who's a straight up injury risk at this point of his career, you want Dorian Williams being able to back up both those positions and not just one, right? Is that if you're Sean McDermott, is that going to be one of your priorities this offseason?
I think it would definitely be. I think it would definitely be a priority for Bobby Babich and the defense to work on that. But I also think it's a pretty realistic bet that they're going to draft a guy in the 5th, 6th, 7th round to replace Balen Spector in that pecking order, and develop some sort of longer term plan for backing up Terrell Bernard, like they did with Matt Milano. It would surprise me if they went up to a 3rd round pick like they did with Matt Milano's replacement, but it wouldn't surprise me for them to spend, one of those. I don't know. They got like $1 billion 5th and 6th round picks this year. Like spending one of those guys on a new Mike linebacker to replace Balen Spector.
Number 7, Joey Bosa. And look, first of all, you got rid of Von Miller. You sign him. Yeah, he's only going to play a certain percentage of the snaps, but this is a guy, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like he was signed for one reason, right? To get you over the hump, to make a play in January that you're not getting from your other guys, that you were hoping you were going to get from Von Miller. That alone gets you in the top 10, right? I mean, he's their big signee, he's their big free agent guy, and his expectation isn't about September, it's about January. And furthermore, we're talking about Greg Rousseau. We both agree he can still get better. I think AJ Epinesa is what he is. Like, I could take this black Sharpie right now and run on my computer screen. 6.5. That's how many sacks AJ Epinesa is going to get this year. 1 forced fumble, maybe a fumble recovery, whatever tackles for loss, but 6.5. I'm going to write that down with this black marker right now. You know what AJ Epinesa is. Joe Bosa is the guy who you signed to get you over the hump when it's all said and done. So he's got to be on this list, right?
I do believe he has to be on this list. And yeah, he's the impact guy. It's always funny. We talked about when Von Miller was signed. He's like, oh, he's done it in January. He's done it in February. He's done it in the big moments in the Super Bowl. And I don't know if Joey Bosa has necessarily done that. So, like, obviously, Joey Bosa did it against Buffalo in a regular season game. But, I don't know if we want to necessarily bank on him to be like that impact player in the big moments, because I don't know if we've seen it like we saw with Von Miller in particular.
Sure. I'll say this, though. If you want to use last year's playoff loss for the Chargers against Houston, I'll take that Joey Bosa for the Bills.
100%.
In a playoff game. I got number 8. I got the center. I got Connor McGovern, just an important position. I think he's become a really good player. I still do think he's ascending as well. That's not to say Alec Anderson couldn't get the job done, or Seth Van Pran Granger, the kid they drafted last year in the 5th round from Georgia. They had to, but I just feel like I don't want to say stud. Your steady, solid center is an important part of your football team. Quickly, I ask you this. We keep hearing about, the Bills going to pay Cook. What's Christian Bedford want? Well, I feel like Connor McGovern's a relatively important extension that we're not really hearing about. I feel like that could be the, oh, we're talking about all these other and it's McGovern that gets extended next. I could see him getting extended this offseason. You feel that same way?
Yeah, and they could bring down his cap hit by doing that too. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him get an extension coming off that Pro Bowl. Like you need, we always talk about this. Like you need certain elite players to win the Super Bowl. You need certain great players to win the Super Bowl, and you need certain really good players to win the Super Bowl. And I think he falls into that really good um, category that could kind of touch the great category if he continues to improve. Um, Last year was his first year at center since what, college, right? I mean, there's maybe he's going to even be better this year. And so, like, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does this year in particular.
Number 9, I got Teron Johnson. I just simply feel he's one of the best players on this team. I feel like there is a significant drop off when it's Cam Lewis that has to go in for him. And I thought by his standards, I thought he was just okay last year. I don't really think he had a special year, not by his standards at all. Going back to that Chiefs game where you're just begging Bernard or Johnson, one of the better players on this team, find a way to somehow make a play, force a fumble, pick a pass off, do something. It obviously didn't happen in that game, but this defense is worlds better when Teron Johnson is playing at the all-pro level that he was the year before, as opposed to this past year where he was just all right. You agree with that? Was he just all right for you this year by his standards?
That's fair, I think. And we talk about Keon Coleman battling through injuries, or Dalton Kincaid battling through injuries, Terrell Bernard battling through injuries. Taron Johnson did too, and so like he got injured the first quarter, didn't he, of the first game? And so, or wait, was that Bernard? I get them confused sometimes because they're both on the field so much. But like Johnson was fighting through injury for a good chunk of that season too, and so if he was playing catch up all year because of that, then like you can at least understand it. But you
Sure.
know, maybe that's one of the reasons why we saw a change on the strength and conditioning staff.
Oh, yeah. All right. Last guy on this list. I don't know why I got him on this list. I don't trust him enough that he should be on this list. However, I do think he is very important to this team. And I got Taylor Rapp on this list. And I'll tell you this. Cole Bishop, I refuse to believe that he is being handed anything. Everyone's talking about it's a foregone conclusion. Rapp and Bishop are starting. I do not buy that for a second. I think Taylor Rapp is starting, and I think you're going to see a Cole Bishop, Tamar Hamlin, Derek Forrest. May the best man win at summer, just like a year ago. Well, last year it was Mike Edwards who got hurt, plus he didn't want to be here, and Bishop got hurt. So Hamlin won that. It wasn't a real competition. I think you're going to see a real legit competition, much to my chagrin, but I think that's what you're going to see this summer. Taylor Rapp is an important player out there. He's one of the guys who's capable, and we've seen it, of making big plays. The Miami game a couple of years ago when the Bills won at Hard Rock in week 17, won the division. He had back-to-back incredible plays, including the interception that put the nail in the coffin. He's capable of big plays. He's also capable of hurting himself 10 times in a season and capable of hurting teammates with friendly fire. So I don't want to see any of that shit. But I think he's an important player. I think he's a potential playmaker, and he's going to start at safety. I'm telling you that much I know if he's healthy.
Well, he's also the only person on your list that could actually not be the starter when the season opens. So who knows? Like, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with anything he said, but like, it still seems like the safety position is very much in flux. And so, like, I, I wouldn't put any of the other safeties ahead of him. So I think that that's a fine pick. But he also could be on the sidelines, on the first drive of the season.
Yeah. But look, you're not wrong there, okay? And I'm gonna be honest with you. Once I got to 10, I'm like, this is gonna be really tough. Because you can make a case, like a couple of honorable mentions that I left off that are good players to great players that aren't on the list. I don't got James Cook on the list. I think James Cook's far and away the best running back, but I think if you got to go with Ty Johnson and Ray Davis, even for an extended period of time, I think the offense will still be okay. I don't have Matt Milano on this list, in part because I think Dorian Williams is waiting in the wings, and I think he's very capable of stepping in and being a good starter. We've seen it at times last year. If Milano gets hurt or for whatever reason, just playing terrible. So I don't got Milano on this list. And I don't got any pass catcher on this list because of the everybody eats thing. I mean, Shakir's awesome. Kincaid, Coleman. I could have put any of them on the list, but Josh doesn't really have a prime. Maybe he will after this season, a primary pass catcher. I could easily have put in Keon Coleman on this list just because what the Bills did at wide receiver by only signing Josh Palmer tells me that they have expectations that Keon Coleman is going to take a big next step. They didn't pursue, any of the bigger name, quote unquote, number one type free agents because I feel like or trades because I think they view Keon Coleman as a guy who's capable of doing a lot more, right?
Yes, I'd put Shakir at the top of the wide receiver or pass catcher list just
Mhm.
because we saw how bad the offense was when he was out in
That is,
2024. So, I mean, unless we get Kincaid actually stepping up or Coleman actually stepping up, like it was not very good when Shakir was out of the lineup. So he's the one I'd put at the top of that list. But I understand your reasoning for the everybody eats kind of part of that conversation.
yeah. Look, 10th place could have been a nine person tie. All right, I could come up with a solid nine, and it got really murky. Even with Connor McGovern a little bit too, it got a little bit murky at that point. Again, there's a lot of other important players we're not even discussing. Everyone's important on a football team. It's a team sport, but just thought that would be a fun little exercise. And I was wondering, like, how many guys would be easy for me? Like Benford and Dawkins, again, they were easy for me. After that, it got a little
Mhm.
bit muddier in trying to place things. Couple little NFL things here before we wrap. So Aaron Rodgers, let's start there. As we're recording this, and you know how I feel, you know how much I absolutely hate with a passion Aaron Rodgers as a human being, but he's likely going to the Steelers, but don't count out the Vikings. That seems to be what the speculation is right now. Don't understand. I feel that. Let me ask you. I don't. This isn't about me, not my opinion. If Aaron Rodgers goes to the Steelers or to the Vikings, does that move the needle for you with where they're at, like right now, or what their expectations will be if they have Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback?
Well, I'll do the Vikings first. I think the Vikings are going to be in kind of that soft rebuild mode if they go to JJ McCarthy. Um, like they could still be a lot better with him, but like you remember how the Bills took their step back when they got rid of Tyrod Taylor and inserted Josh Allen into the starting lineup, and there's going to be growing pains and all that stuff. But he's like certainly a capable NFL quarterback. They're going to take some sort of step back, regardless of who goes into the quarterback position. Um, the Steelers, it doesn't really do a whole lot for me at all. I mean, I thought Russell Wilson was a competent quarterback
Mhm.
last year for the Steelers. I think Aaron Rodgers would be a competent quarterback for them. Um, it just feels like more of the same for Pittsburgh. They just like keep getting stuck in that. Oh well, we never have a losing season, but we don't also have a great season because of that. So they were both at like 63% passing, right around 7 yards per attempt. Um, Russ was at 225 yards per game, and Rodgers was at 229 yards per game. So it's like they're very similar, I think, at this stage. Even if Russ might be a little bit, more mobile, Rodgers has good pocket presence, so like that kind of evens out. Like it wouldn't move the needle for me a lot with the Steelers, and it just feels like they're another. I almost said 9-7. How many years have we been 17 games? Like they're like a 9-8 team, like in my brain
Yeah.
until they really figure out that offense.
Yeah, to me, he doesn't move the needle for me with the Steelers whatsoever. Without him, with him, they're fifth, sixth, seventh best team maybe in the conference. They're not the best team in their division. He's not going to make them better than Baltimore. That's for damn sure. And I don't think
Mhm.
they're going to be better than Cincinnati if Burrow stays healthy, and they don't get decimated by injuries and they win every game 48-45, which they might do again, and they might have to do again this year. Doesn't move the
Uh-huh.
needle for me at all if I'm a Steelers fan. Um, Again, credit to Patrick right now because I'm refraining from talking too personal about how I feel about Aaron Rodgers. Sticking to football. The Vikings, he might move the needle a little bit more. I sort of disagree with you a little bit with the Vikings. Even if McCarthy's their quarterback, I still think they're a team that's going to be in the mix because they spent good money at defensive tackle. They still
Mhm.
got Justin Jefferson and Addison, Hawkinson. They got weapons galore for him. Aaron Jones, I believe, re-signed with the Vikings too. They got a lot of weapons. So I think the Vikings are going to be good, even if it is JJ McCarthy. I don't think they'll be maybe as good as Sam Darnold was last year. I don't know if you want to stunt if you're going to invest in JJ McCarthy eventually, why do
Right.
it? Why wait a year? Do it now,
Exactly.
and maybe you'll still be good. I mean, it could happen. What CJ Stroud did, with Houston early on. They got a lot of talent around him. So I predict he's going to Pittsburgh. That's ultimately how I think it's going to play out. But yeah, I agree with you. They're a 9 to 10 win team. Maybe if they get lucky, they'll go 11 and 6, but doesn't move the needle for me. Give me a team or two that you feel like, let's have a little bit of late fun March here. The weather sucks in Buffalo again. It's freaking like 34 degrees out, by the way. Just ridiculous. March 25th is what it is. Sometimes I forget that this is what it's supposed to be like in Buffalo, New York. But
Right.
give me a team or two that you feel like could be in line to surprise many this year. Like every year, there is a team. Now, look, there's still more season to go. If we did this last year, 365 days ago, you never would have said Washington, nor should you have. They got Jaden Daniels in the draft, caught lightning in a bottle. Look what they did. So I know the draft's still to come, but maybe you could reject who goes where or what. Give me a team right now that you feel like's in line to surprise many. Maybe two teams, like maybe one that's going to be good, one that's going to be bad, whatever. Right now, have a little bit of late fun, March, a little innocent fun here.
Sure. The team I circled for both of these is the Colts, because I think if Anthony Richardson can take a step forward, they could be really good, and they could also like have the bottom drop out and be absolutely terrible. So like I can see the Colts going in either one of these boxes really. There's a few teams actually out there. Like I think the Patriots are setting up really nicely. They still play, in a tougher division maybe. Carolina, I think they're ready to turn a corner down in Carolina. Like we're talking about teams that are like can be really surprising. Those are a couple teams that I'd look at for them. As far as like bad, like I just sooner or later the wheels have to fall off the Steelers, right? Like I mean, it just feels like they're gonna. I don't know. How much goodwill can Mike Tomlin carry year to year when his team is just not getting anywhere, even close to the hump, let alone over the hump? And then Seattle doing their whole reset thing, just I don't know, didn't make sense to me. So they really have the potential of bottoming out this year too, I think.
So you mentioned the Steelers, and the Steelers aren't my pick for either team, but I will say one of the more interesting storylines that is not played out that I think eventually will is Pickens. I don't
Yeah,
see Pickens and Metcalf the way they play they're almost like the same style. And Pickens sure as hell ain't going to be happy not being the number one guy on that football team. And it's his final year of his contract. And maybe Pittsburgh can get some value because they know a season ahead of time. We just gave DK 30 million. I don't care how good Pickens is. We sure ain't giving him 20 to 25 million. So it's like, is he in no man's land? Could he still be traded somewhere? I still see that scenario playing out with the Steelers. I think that may be one of the biggest remaining storylines. Kind of going to one of my points here, though. A team that could surprise you in a good way. You mentioned one as one of them, New England. I re- I like what they did with defense. I like that they got a head coach who's stable and Mike Vrabel. And they're not done. They got a lot of cap room, man. They got a lot of money. And we talked about Stefon Diggs. Maybe they get Amari Cooper. Hell, they could afford both of them if they want. You know what I mean? They could.
they
Elijah
could.
Moore's still out there. You mentioned him. Tyler Lockett. There's still some decent free agent receivers that could help Dre May along. I do think now that they're going to get Hunter in the draft. I think that's going to be a pretty big deal because I think the two quarterbacks are going 1 and 3 now. I think Shador Sanders is going to go to the Giants at 3, and I think Cam Ward's probably going to go number 1, and Abdul Carter will be number 2. So I think Hunter's going to be there for the Patriots. So that's another great weapon. I mentioned Pickens. Maybe they trade for a Pickens. He can go be the number 1 there for Drake May. I see the New England Patriots being on the rise. I don't think they're going to be better than the Buffalo Bills, but I definitely think that they are a team that's going to be way better than they've been the last few years. Flip side, I know I'm going to get accused of being a homer for this. Sooner or later, you kept saying the bottom's going to fall out. I was waiting for you to say the Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs, look, they keep losing players. And all right, so they lose DJ Reed, who I think is one of the best safeties in the NFL. They lose Warden, who's a key, not an irreplaceable, but a pretty important depth piece on that defensive line. They lose their left tackle, Thuney, in a trade with the Bears. I forgot who they got right now, but it's not as good as him that they signed in free agency. Travis Kelce's a year older, closer to being washed up. He was nowhere near what he was, in the past last year. Chris Jones, he's getting a year older, man. A lot of wear and tear on that guy. He's a stud. I'd do anything to have him on the Bills. There's a lot of factors. Plus, how many times did they get lucky last year? And I'm not talking about the Bills. They earned the victory against the Bills. But that team could have easily lost 5-6 games last year, and they didn't. Sooner or later, the law of averages say an injury or two, you keep losing your best players, your luck's got to run out at some point. So I could see the Chiefs. Plus, I really like the Chargers on the come up. Denver could be on the come up. So I think there's going to be a real fight this year in the AFC West. Quickly here, before we get out of here, time's almost up. However, here's something we've never talked about on the show. I saved it to the end. I didn't know this until recently. I see some of your tweets. You're a wrestling fan.
Oh yeah.
Well, so am I.
Yeah.
What has been your take right now? And everyone bitching about WWE, whatever, man. I waited 55 goddamn minutes to get to this. I follow pretty closely, and if I don't watch it live, I always at least read the recaps, see the clips and stuff like that. So I'm always aware of keeping up with the product. WrestleMania season is going to be here in a couple weeks. I think it's like 3 weeks or so now away, or three and a half
26 days from last night. They said it a million times on Raw yesterday.
I don't like the way WrestleMania is being built right now, and I'll go through a couple things. Let me know if you disagree or get some of your own thoughts. With Cody Rhodes, I liked John Cena turning heel. I love the thought of heel Cena versus Cody Rhodes, but they're protecting Cody Rhodes way too much right now. Like back-to-back weeks, John Cena gets on the mic and he just belittles the fans. He insults the fans. He makes it about them. He blames them. Cody comes out back-to-back weeks. It almost felt like copy and paste last week from this week.
It did, yes.
This week's nugget was he's going to take the title and, he's going to retire early and, he's the last real champion. That's a new little wrinkle. But to me, it's noticeable they are not letting John Cena cook Cody Rhodes on the mic. I think they're afraid that Cena could cook him. I think they're afraid if you give the crowd any reason at all to start booing Cody, they will. And that's the last thing they want because Cody's the super baby face and Cena's got to get over as the pure villain. I don't like that. Also, he aligned with The Rock. And maybe it's going to come out. There's still time. I get that. But he aligned with The Rock. There's not been one reference in either of his promos. And look, as of right now, John Cena's only got one more advertised appearance left, and that's next week in London. Not even a mention of the final boss selling his soul, why he did any of that. None of it. Everything's just been about the fans out of the clear blue. So I don't like that. I love Seth, Punk, and Roman as wrestlers. I kind of feel like that was just thrown together. Let's make a meal here. Some beefaroni and some pasta, and here's some meatballs. We're just going to smash it all together. 3 big stars, make it into a program. I don't like that. I don't like Rhea's being forced into that triple threat match. I don't like that at all. Like, she should have just beat Io Sky and wrestled Bianca Belair if that was going to be the case. Or let Io win and let her wrestle Bianca. But Rhea Ripley's in there. I think that's a bad look. And then the Gunther versus Jimmy or Jay Uso. I don't feel WrestleMania main event worthy to me. Gunther's out there working with Otis and shit every week. And, Jay's wrestling with Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. What are we doing here? This don't feel like a great WrestleMania build. And I know there's still a couple weeks, Matt, but what are your thoughts right now?
Yeah, you said a lot of the things that I'm thinking as well. The final boss thing is perplexing. I just have no idea why John Cena would turn heel by aligning himself with The Rock and then not mention The Rock for a month. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So hopefully they're saving some, I don't know, really good meat on the bone for that. And, The Rock can come in at some point, or Cena can reference, I don't know. I thought that was a little weird of the turn. I do think they needed to turn Cena heel in order to make this main event work. Sure. So I like that they did that. What are some of the other ones? I'm not a huge Io Sky fan, so I like the Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair would have been electric. I noticed you did not mention Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton at all because
I forgot
Flair just cooked Tiffany Stratton on Friday night, and so it's like that one even feels like it's like secondary, tertiary kind of way down the card. So I think we all assume Charlotte Flair is going to win and just go and be the heel and everything. But going back to the Io Sky, Bianca Belair, and Rhea Ripley, they wanted all 3 of them on the card. I can see how that's coming together. Also in the women's division, we got a little bit of maybe Bayley might be inserting herself into a tag team championship match. against Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan. Like, I mean, maybe we see like that kind of thing coming together too. So I think it's still a lot more nebulous than we're used to seeing. We've only had a few matches that have been actually announced. And I'll say this: Drew McIntyre being in an event or being in a program with
Damian
I can't
Priest.
think of his name. Yeah, Damian Priest right now feels really like womp womp because they're spotted the Royal Rumble and did really poorly. I just don't think there's this animosity built between the two of them, especially when he's coming off such a hot program with CM Punk. Like, I love Drew McIntyre. We need to get that guy in a way better program than the one he's in right now.
Yeah. Look, with Cena too, I'll say this. The one thing I hope they're not going to continue with is Cena threatening to retire and take the belt, because to me, that kind of takes away some of the mystery to me. Makes me feel like there's no way Cody's losing because Cena ain't going to win and just obviously he's not going to take the belt and retire. Now, I could be reading too much into that. And again, I will say there's still a couple weeks, couple shows to make things take shape. And here's the other thing, and I can't take credit for this. I wish I could, but I'm an honest guy, man. I saw it on Twitter. I don't know who it was, so I can't give the right person credit. Someone suggested and said, you know how they have the Money in the Bank pay-per-view every year now, which is one of my favorite pay-per-views. I love the Money in the Bank matches. But instead of making all these forcing Rhea Ripley into a triple threat, you could tell that the U.S. Championship is going to end up being a four-way too now with Penta and Braun and Dominic and Finn, forcing a triple threat with CM Punk and Roman and Seth. Bring back the Money in the Bank matches as part of WrestleMania.
At WrestleMania. I get it.
Organically. Like, to your point, and you had a really good one. Who gives a shit about Drew McIntyre against Damian Priest? But I'll tell you what, put them both in a Money in the Bank match where there's one winner. That could be intriguing. You have LA Knight in there. You have a couple other guys who really don't have much of a role right now for this. And it's like with Logan Paul, they're forcing an AJ Styles because he's got to have somebody to work with. And it's going to be AJ Styles. Let them guys in a Money in the Bank match. That would be so much more entertaining. It's a great way to organically get 6 or even 8 wrestlers on each side involved in a match. 4 stakes. Who knows? Even the mystique or the mystique that maybe they cash it in at the end of WrestleMania. You never know. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I feel like instead of having that as a pay-per-view itself, bring that back to WrestleMania, because I'm seeing too many forced triple threats and 4-ways and stuff like that.
Yeah, we don't even know if LA Knight's going to be on the card right now because the U.S. Championship thing is like, kind of a little bit iffy. But who's going to be relegated to the Andre the Giant Battle Royal on the Friday Night SmackDown before WrestleMania? I think that's kind of going to be the telling part.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. I love WWE, and they've done a lot more good things and bad things over the last year since Triple H has taken over. But this build to WrestleMania has been peculiar to me at this point. But now that I know that you are a wrestling guy, we get an opportunity to have a little bit of fun here at the end of some of these shows for sure. Anyway,
absolutely.
All right, let's make sure you give Matt a follow on Blue Sky at Matt Rich Warren. Also is on Twitter as well at the same handle, of course. Check out SB Nation. All right, man, this was fun. Thank you very much, Matt.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, guys, and I'll be back with a brand new show. Like I said, my first in what will be 5 consecutive weekly mock drafts, 7-round Buffalo Bills mock drafts coming up on the show tomorrow.